New York Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis joins us. She serves on the House Republican Israel Caucus and House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congresswoman, welcome to Fox News.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
You know, Hamas is saying that Iran supported this surprise attack. Do you think it was aimed at trying to disrupt the pending historic agreement between Jerusalem and the Saudi kingdom?
Well, look, that makes very much a lot of sense. You have both of these individuals who are titans in the regions, who have different interests. And I do think that in many ways, this was Iran's attempt to disrupt Israel from making many more agreements with Arab nations. Look, the Abraham Accords have been very successful. You speak to any of the parties involved, all of them will tell you that it has brought peace, it has brought prosperity to their countries. And the problem here is that what we're seeing is Iran is backing Hamas, Hezbollah. I mean, 70% of Hamas's finances comes from Iran. And I think this is really a coordinated test as well. When you think about it, President Biden has handled things very differently than President Trump did. With the Iran Accords, they were able to make a deal with 4 different countries in Israel. You never saw this type of invasion. But yet, this president, unfortunately, has shown weakness. He has lifted sanctions. He has issued sanction waivers for Iran. This has all contributed to what I think you're seeing today. And sadly, it started with the withdrawal in Afghanistan. And so you're seeing the different players all over the world test not just our allies, but test the United States. You can say the same thing for Russia's invasion into Ukraine. You could say the same for the aggression we're seeing from China in the South Asian Sea, and other parts of the world that are in disarray at this moment.
Is there a way, and how can we? We've tried. I mean, 5 American presidents have tried to stop the terror funding from Iran. 7 presidents, we have given, according to the Middle East Research Media Institute, $15.7 billion to Iran in exchange for hostages. This goes back to the Reagan administration. There are sanctions against Iranian officials. The Treasury Department has done that, as you know. Is there a way that the flow of money that supports radical Islamic terrorism from the mullahs in Tehran can be stopped by the Western world?
Well, I thought President Trump made great progress there. I mean, he had this maximum pressure strategy that seemed to be isolating and starving Iran. And I thought that was what needed to be continued. And that's why so many of us in Congress were so disappointed when we saw the release of another $6 billion. Now, people can say that's supposed to be held specifically for humanitarian aid. But that's money now that is relieving Iran so they can spend their money to continue to sponsor terror. So that's why I say that this administration, unfortunately, has sent some really weak messages, and they placate our adversaries. And again, you saw it with sanctions being lifted on oil sales. You saw it with various waivers that allowed civilians to continue to work on nuclear efforts in Iran. This is all led to people believing that they can get away with this. And the other question that's being tested right now is, will the United States stand with its allies? I think that is a critical thing that is being asked. And it matters that we support Ukraine. It matters that we support Israel. Of course, we want to make sure that all funding, there's a plan, that there's accountability. But that is another question here.
Well, the president yesterday the president was very clear on that. Yes, we are standing with our ally, absolutely, and he made that in the strongest of terms. But let me also get your reaction on Secretary of State Blinken. Talked about that $6 billion, and he says people are misinformed or they're purposely misinforming the public. Does it satisfy you that the administration's response is what we're told, that $6 billion was oil money in South Korea, now it's in Qatar, and it cannot be released unless the U.S. Treasury Department releases it, and it only goes for humanitarian purposes? Does that explanation satisfy you that $6 billion in no way funded this attack or will go to fund terrorism?
Well, that $6 billion may not have gone to fund this terrorism that we're seeing today. But lifting the sanctions on oil sales, lifting other sanctions and waivers, providing economic relief for Iran in other ways that this administration has done certainly does contribute. And look, if they have $6 billion more now for aid or food or medicine or whatever it may be, which truly I don't believe it ever does get to the people, but then that relieves $6 billion elsewhere that they can then use to sponsor terrorism. The fact remains that Iran funds 70% of Hamas's activities. They also fund Hezbollah. And these are facts.
Yeah.
So any type of relief that we give to Iran ends up benefiting these terrorist organizations.
Yeah, we saw what happened with the Oil for Food program at the United Nations. Oh, that money was billions was supposed to go to humanitarian efforts only. And Saddam Hussein used it to build up his military and whatever he wanted. Finally, Congresswoman, what should the administration do? What can Congress do to try and cut off Iran? What would you suggest the administration does to try and give Iran a tough message? Or in your view, is this administration just not capable of doing that?
I think we need to return to the peace through strength policies of President Trump, the isolation policies where we were trying to cut off economic vitality of Iran, making sure that we don't we reinstate the sanctions on oil sales, making sure that we reinstate all the waivers that were lifted by this administration. And I think that you can only do it by electing a Republican president, whether it be President Trump or any of the other candidates. Certainly, I believe they would have a much stronger policy towards Iran than appeasement, which is what we've been seeing from this administration. Even with these deals, secret negotiations that they've been making, Congress has said very clearly, we want to have a say. We deserve a role. And in fact, law requires us to have a final say on any type of nuclear deal that emerges. We've seen negotiating taking place where we feel that we have not been privy to what exactly is being put on the table. All of that, I think, has played a role into this. And I'm glad to hear the president say unequivocally that we stand with the people of Israel and we will support them. But nonetheless, in other ways, you can't be undermining them by making certain concessions to Iran and other agitators throughout the world.
New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, thank you for your insight today and for joining us. We do indeed stand with Israel. We will have more